of scaffolding. Now, remember, you're imagining yourself as a contractor as well. And we just want to talk about scaffolding, the different types of scaffolds. But let's just see the outcomes that we should have learned by the end of this session. Should learn how to define the terminologies of a scaffold. Now, this is to say the material that is used in scaffolding, the names of each and every item used on a scaffold. And then we'll identify different types of scaffolding. What's an independent scaffold? PUTLOG scaffold, cantilever scaffold, hanging scaffold, and mobile scaffold. We'll discuss all of these. So by the end of this, you would understand everything I just said. And if this is what you're looking for, then stick around. Let's get right into it. Okay, so first of all, this is just to name the members that are found really in a scaffold. Okay, the first one is tubes. Tubes make up the bulk of a scaffolding structure. So tubes would be the members, as you can see, they're shaped in a tubular shape. They are circular, so those are the tubes. Couplers are metal elements used to assemble scaffolding tubes. So these connecting things, couplers. Okay, there are various types, including single, double, sleeve, swivel. These four are known as primarily fittings. So all these fittings that are connecting the tubes are called couplers. There's different types, as you see, I've just read. And then we've got gene wheels. Okay, gene wheels are appliances used to raise or lower a load without any horizontal movement. They are often used with ropes and are good for lifting up scaffolding. Well, they're not here in this picture over here. Oh, there it is. Sorry, there it is. There's a chin wheel over there. As you can see, it has a rope, brings material up to where these people are working, or it can bring material down. Okay. Some more definitions. Let's look at some boards. There are some boards. If you look at this picture, that would be the boards, the platforms that people are working on. And then scaffold towers. Towers are designed for long duration tasks when working at height. Okay, so the longer the height, the height of the scaffolding is referred to as a tower. Okay, and then standards, the upright component with connector joints. So upright means it's the horizontal, it's the vertical members. The vertical tubes, rather, those are the ones that are called standards. And then the ledger are the horizontal bracing. Okay, so the horizontal members, all these horizontal members, now those is what we're talking about when we're talking about ledgers. Scaffold tie, used to tie in the scaffold to the structure. So this one has no tie, because a tie is an anchor rather for the scaffolding that connects to the building for extra support of the scaffold. And then brackets are used to extend the width of working platform. Let's see if they're here. Brackets no, they're not showing here, but they just extend the working platform, as it says here. Okay, now those were just the members of a typical scaffold, but let's get into the types of scaffolding now. Okay, now when we look at the types of scaffolding, really we're just looking at the first one that we're going to look at is this one called the PUTLOG scaffolding. Now, PUTLOG scaffolds use the wall of the building being built as a support. Now, if you look at this cupola here, this picture over this side. Okay, you can see that we have a building wall on our left. Okay, and as you connect, there's a connection between the wall. As you can see, there's a throw tie there, a draft tie that connects the scaffolding to the building for extra support. So here it says to use the wall as support. Okay, a PUTLOG, a transom with a flattened end that enables it to rest solidly. I think what you should understand with a PUTLOG scaffolding is that it uses the existing building for extra support. Okay, so it's still a scaffold, but it connects to the building. It connects there through, because there's a window there, so you use a through tie. But where it can connect straight into the wall, it connects, as you can see there and there. The rest of the materials are there. You can see bracing there, these diagonal members, these vertical ones. Remember what we said there are, is it written here? Standards, yeah, the standards. Those are the vertical members that you can see. And if you look at the bottom there, we've got the saw plate, the base plate. And one last thing just to point out about the PUTLOG scaffolding is that the PUTLOG is the member that actually goes into the wall. As you can see here, the PUTLOG, it joins into the wall. Also here, the PUTLOG joins into the wall. Okay, let's continue. And then here is a further example of PUTLOG. As you can see, the PUTLOGs on this scaffolding are going into the wall. All right, with the picture on the right. But just to discuss a few advantages and disadvantages. One advantage of a PUTLOG is that it ties to the actual wall being constructed rather than freestanding. This makes it more rigid and safer in high winds because it's stronger than a independent one. Well, we haven't really looked at an independent one, but we will after this. The disadvantage is the holes of the PUTLOG. As you can imagine, it joins into the wall, and you know, walls are created there. Okay, so I mean holes are created there. So those holes are a disadvantage because it means that after having, you know, dispatched the scaffolding, now you have to spend more time to fill those holes up. Okay. And then depending on the contractor, on yourself, because remember, you're thinking of yourself as a contractor, it might spend you more time filling the holes, and the whole wall might even look untidy after that and unpleasing. All right, so let's look at the independent scaffolding now. We've got independent scaffolds. As you can see here, it's not tied to any building. It's just independent, standing on its own, but it has all the members, okay? It's got the cupolas, got the transom, it's got the standard. Oh, I didn't introduce a transom to you. Well, a transom is a horizontal member of a scaffolding, just like what was this one before that's defined? Just like a ledger, okay? So the difference between the ledger and a transom is that the transom is a horizontal member, but it's the main member. And then the ledger is like, it's the bracing. Remember, bracing is just supporting the actual members, not necessarily supporting the weight that's about to be carried by the members, the main members. So a transom will carry the main weight, but a bracing will assist the transform. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's something like that. Just think about it. Like, as you can see here, there's these diagonal bracings there. They are really supporting the members to be more rigid rather than carrying the actual weight that's carried by the members. So it can, a bracing can also, carry some weight, but not so much, not so much. Okay, so talking more about, the independent scaffolding. For normal work, the standards are placed in pairs. So these are just some numbers for guidance, but not all scaffolds have to be like these dimensions. There's a scaffold design, the people that specialize in scaffolds, they design scaffolds based on the work that's required on site. And also the members of a scaffold, some of them, they come in standard sizes. So these numbers are just speaking to the standardization of scaffolding, not necessarily what should be there all the time on site. Okay, so bracing is required to make the scaffold rigid. Like I said, bracing is just to make the main members more rigid, but not necessarily to carry the weight of the loads that will be imposed on the scaffold. So this type of scaffold can be erected ahead of building work if necessary. So that's the difference between the independent scaffold and the padlock. You see, the padlock requires the building to be already there, the walls to be already there. But an independent one, it's independent of all of that, so it doesn't really need the walls. In fact, you use the independent ones to construct the wall if you're gonna have a huge a wall that has a huge height. All right, now let's talk about the next type of cantilever scaffolding. As you can see from the picture here, the cantilever is this member here. You can see the cantilever here. Okay, and then the scaffolding then under the cantilever. Okay, so the scaffolding goes under the cantilever. Now, cantilever scaffolding is a separate scaffold constructed to angle out from the building. Right, the main thing is that the scaffold building is at an angle. As you can see, it's constructed in an angle. It's not upright like the padlock or independent scaffolding, but this one is constructed in an angle. That's the main thing about it, that it's an angle. This cantilever scaffolding is used when obstacles on the ground or narrow pathways prevent basing the scaffold on the ground. So if there is some sort of prevention on the ground, for example, from this picture, it's not so clear, but there's actually a swimming pool right at this scaffolding. There's a swimming pool there, so you can't really use like a padlock scaffolding which is upright, because that would mean you need to put some members on the swimming pool, and you don't want to do that. So then you will introduce this cantilever scaffolding then, which is at an angle to allow the space underneath. Okay. Just to continue on the cantilever scaffolding, if you look at the picture there, you can see the scaffolding at an angle clearly. Cantilever scaffolds or hook scaffold is needed within the instances where, when it is difficult to repair regular into the floor, whenever the building is performed privately off the road, whenever development function is completed at high degree, in case there is making. Okay, so all these points, what they are saying is that if there's a disturbance underneath, it can be a road, it can be a swimming pool, but it's some kind of difficulty underneath here that's stopping you from, putting a padlock, a scaffolding, anything, then you introduce the cantilever scaffold. As you can see, that's a cantilever base there, and then you can then put your padlock on top of the cantilever. But the cantilever is the star of the show, so we say. Okay. Now let's talk about the mobile scaffolding. Well, the big difference with a mobile scaffold really is just the wheels. It's like an independent scaffold, but except it's got wheels, right? So mobile scaffolding is essentially temporary support platform that is based on wheels or caster wheels, right? Casters, and is used for a multiple of purposes. Commonly used for construction tasks where workers need to change their position frequently. These movable structures are perfect for jobs like plastering the wall, painting the wall, or even the roof or the ceiling, rather. Mobile scaffolding is not only not very safe, but also cost effective, efficient. Now, these are just some advantages, that it's cost effective in that you just need a small platform and you can move it around, as opposed to having an entire scaffolding members on the entire wall. You just have a small section to use on the wall that you are working on, and it's cost effective, it's efficient that way, and it's portable because it's small, but it's not very safe as the disadvantage. It's not very safe. I know it's not on. The point is it's not only very safe, but if you think of it, if this thing is gonna move and you didn't tie it at the bottom on the caster wheels, that's an unsafe environment because you can just move at any time to disturb you while you're working on the top, and then disaster. So it's not a very safe scaffolding, but it apart from it moving, it is fairly safe, let's say that. So here then we have just a demonstration of what's happening. These guys are working on the roof. I think they're installing something, or if they were painting the roof as well. As you can see, the wheels, and then they anchor it to make sure on the floor, to make sure that it doesn't move, and then they can work. And when they're done on this panel of the roof, they can just move to another panel, which means it's portable. It's safe and convenient in terms of being rigid for that particular position. Okay, it's spacious, meaning that it usually comes with a platform that allows more than one person to work on it. But again, this is done by the scaffold designers. They will determine how large the working space should be based on the actual work and the number of people that will be working on it. Okay, it's lightweight and productive as well. So as you can see, as opposed to a padlock scaffold that will be put on the entire panel, this one is just specific to one panel, and that makes it lightweight because there's fewer members involved. All right, then let's talk about hanging scaffolds. If you look at this picture here, this scaffold is anchored on the top as opposed to the bottom, like as we just saw from the independent scaffolds. Those are anchored at the bottom, the padlock bottom, even the mobile ones, it's at the bottom, but the hanging one is on top. anchored on top, as demonstrated there. So hanging scaffolds that are standing scaffolds, particular attention must be paid to whether the structure the hanging scaffold is to be attached to is able to support the hanging scaffold and its intended loads. So one very important thing to have in mind is that the top where the scaffolding will be connected to, as you can see here, you must make sure that it's strong enough to actually carry the scaffolding and also the people that are going to be working here on top of the scaffolding, as well as the material that's going to be placed on the scaffolding. Well, can you actually imagine what this is like? If not, I have a picture. Here we go. Well, if a building has been built already, as you can see here, it's a high-rise building, it's a skyscraper, and there are people, you want to wash the windows of the building from top, you have to involve a hanging scaffold. As you can see, the platform is on top and it's anchored to the top as well, not the bottom. The bottom is too far, so you anchor it on top. Just make sure, as the first point to that side, that the where you are anchoring it, the top is very, very strong and it can carry the different weights. Now, hanging scaffold foundations are opposite to that of standing scaffolds. Particular attention must be paid to whether the structure of the hanging scaffold is to be attached to it, is able to support. So, well, we've gone through this already, that where you will be hanging the scaffolding, it must be strong enough to carry the weight. Okay, so these are just some benefits of the hanging scaffold. It's economical because you're just working from the top, as you can see here, as opposed to starting the scaffolding from the bottom, like the independent scaffolding. It would be a very high scaffolding, that one. And also you can't do a PUTLOG scaffolding here because the walls are made of glass. So this is the most economical one. It's much cheaper to do this. It's versatile, meaning that it's portable. It can move around. Like when you're done on these panels, you can just, move it. It's a flexible design. As long as you have your panels on top being strong enough, that's really the main thing. And then you can make the scaffolding as well as intended. Again, the designers of scaffolding, if you're the designer, then you design based on the job and the material and people that will be on top of that. So it's flexible design. You can make it longer, you can make it shorter. It just depends on the kind of job that you want to do. And it maximizes productivity because once you're done in one area, you can move to another area, just like in the mobile scaffolding that can move around when you're done. Okay. Well, I think that's it for me today. That's all about scaffolding that we're doing today. I hope you understood that really.